So is it Stefan or Stefan? Because I keep realizing I'm saying it both ways.
No, Stefan is fine.
That's my fault. French Canadian coming out.
Oh, it is absolutely Brent's fault. Yeah. Don't.
Sorry.
No, it's just 100% your fault. And we already discussed this in the Lup Post show. So
I'm fine with it.
Brent.
I know. I'm trying my best, but language equals hard.
Yeah.
Tell me. Yeah, I know. I know for sure. Yeah.
Right. You understand, right?
Brent gets drunk. He starts talking in French.
It's the tea. It gets to me.
The tea.
It's office hours with me, Chris. Brent's here too. Welcome in, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to the office. Hey, Brent.
Hi.
Nice in here. I put out a candle. I lit it a good hour before we got in here. That way people think it smells good all the time.
Yeah, what's that flavor? I can't quite pinpoint it. It's like this.
It's bacon.
Oh, yeah, right. It's the sizzling was missing, so I couldn't quite pinpoint that.
I got it from a place called Mandel's, not far from the studio. Real place. Really sells stuff like that. We got a special show today. We got some problems we're solving. We got big momentum, big projects, big website energy in this episode of Office Hours. So I'm glad you're joining us. And to make things extra special, the star of the show, the man, the legend, the community leader, our website hero, Mr. Stefan is back. Hello, Stefan. Welcome into the office.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I mean it when I say it. First of all, you've been doing a hero's amount of work on the new website at jupiterbroadcasting.net if people want to see the work in progress. But you've also inspired a lot of community members to get in and start working and just cranking through all this stuff. We really are seeing something come together that I think is pretty special. So I thank you for that, too. I think you led the way on that and people followed your lead. So thank you for that, too.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if I can claim that on me. So I'm happy for the community. I mean, the community is great and pretty smart. I mean, it's really like they know what they're doing and they're coming up with stuff where I really need like a second to process what's happening and so on. So there are like a lot of talented people in the community, but also like Kiro is also like doing tons of work and without him I would be so far behind. So he's doing a lot of he did all the content parsing and so on so that we have the content we can work with. And he's like super consistent and super helpful, and it's really been a pleasure working with him also.
Brent, it's been pretty great watching the GitHub stats and everything come together. We've had some big developments since our last office hours.
Yeah, I was a little astounded because a few days ago I pulled some of those stats and put them in a little show doc for this show. And this morning I had to update it because it had almost doubled. So in the last 30 days or so, there's like 13 authors who have published 112 commits.
Yeah.
Stefan's like, oh man, I just spend all my time looking at, pull requests and stuff these days instead of actually building things, which is sort of an interesting problem.
It's an interesting problem to have. It's also like a bit of a challenge for me to do it this way because, and this is also something we realized. So we went from my MVP project site to the official Jupiter Broadcasting repository. And that like brought a lot of attention to the whole project. And then we realized, I mean, before it was just Brent, Kiro and myself working on that. And we had like a good report and everybody had his own little part of the project. So Kiro with all the scraping, Brent a lot with the content, and me with the site and the build process itself and so on. And now you have like input everywhere in every process and people chiming in, and then you need to make sure that the vision is like upholded, but the vision never was clearly defined. And I think that was like, I underestimated what would change if we make it public so soon, and that you need to put out like a lot of information, what you want to achieve and what is important for you. and how people can best contribute, because otherwise it's a frustrating experience for everybody who wants to contribute, and then I don't have the time to explain something, or they're working on something I completely didn't intend it because I was unspecific and so on. And so my role changed like a lot, or is changing.
Yeah, it's really interesting. This is the very first time well, two things. A, contribute so deeply to like an open source spirit project, which has been a ton of fun. But B, of course, also am one of the people who is trying to organize all of this work. So I'm learning a ton. And one of the things now that I'm spending most of my time on, before it was, writing content and stuff like that, but now it's just trying to organize things and to, we have been using the GitHub issues as tickets for features and ideas and like asking questions and things like that. And previously, just like 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were just listing those things, and the small, tiny group of people who are working on the project understood all of the assumptions. So, a ticket idea might just be make community page, and there was no other information. And so we quickly realized that's not helpful to a group of 10 plus, 13 plus people who are working on stuff. So it's been interesting that I've had to be much more intentional about what we're trying to achieve on each ticket and define ideas to look at, or ask for ideas, or even just like, here's the vision. And that's been actually super helpful to define what the end goal is. It's been really fascinating, actually, to work with so many people. It's been great. And the suggestions on how to solve certain problems have been equally great. So thank you to everyone.
Yeah, and also, Brent, I must say, I think you're doing a stellar job.
Oh, thanks.
I would not have guessed that this is like your first time managing something like that, and it's really helping me out. I mean, maybe you don't feel that way, or I don't know, but it's really appreciated and it helps out, because and that's like, you help out in areas where I'm not so good. So it's really good.
So you don't mind the giant list of assigned tickets I give you in the morning?
I wouldn't go that far, but I manage. Yeah. So.
Yeah, you are managing. It's been great. But you are right. When we opened it up to the public, we get people that are working on stuff by the time I go to sleep, and by the time I wake up, something's been created. And so we've been feeling like it's probably time to focus, because what I realized, and I think Brent probably realized pretty recently too, is with this road trip we have coming up in September, we really have a hard deadline of getting this done in August. And that means we really probably have to kind of focus on very specific things to get that done. And I feel like I'm only really starting to wrap my head around it now, because, well, it's part of the squeaky wheel problem also, but we've been really asking ourselves, what role does the website serve, and what will it serve in the future as we kind of start our migration process away from Fireside and we migrate to more of building our own back-end infrastructure. And that has sort of meant that there's been times where I've felt like, well, okay, we should do things like generate the RSS feeds from the website. And then there's a time later I'm like, actually, no, now that I think about it, that's not going to work. We can't do that. And so I've been looking at what do we still have ahead of us and what can we trim. And I'm curious if either one of you have thoughts on areas that we should probably look at just focusing in on just for the next few weeks. So that way we can make the flip over without losing track of, too, that we could probably use some more help with design, too. But curious on your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's true. So I had a bit of not a breakdown, but I was getting a bit nervous, and I was contacting Brent on Sunday, and I was like, we can't continue like this. And I realized that was maybe a bit more dramatic than I intended, but I just wanted to say that exactly what Chris said. We need to focus on what we can really achieve in the next 3 to 4 weeks, because it's not more, and be realistic about it. So I was down with COVID for a week, which was not fun and impacted my productivity. And so we really need to be realistic and also be honest in we won't stop when we release. So I mean, we just continue. We just need to know what we need to have to start the transition and then work on it. And we're calling it milestone 1. And I think we will in this week clean up the tickets a bit and really assign the tickets that will go into milestone 1, which we really need for production, and then make a milestone 2, and that's like 4 weeks after going live, what we want to add feature-wise next. And yeah, we really need to hunker down on milestone 1 and get that done.
Yeah, it's the final crunch is approaching, and so now it's like, okay, what do we have to just get this thing, to launch off the ground? Because Scale Engine has very politely been reminding us that their deadline is serious and that they are out of the WordPress hosting business, and they'd really like us gone by the end of summer. So we got to do it, and I understand. And we do have a few details to figure out on like back end hosting stuff and whatnot. But we have a lot of options, so in some ways it feels like that's not that it's unimportant, but it's not a critical decision. Whereas like, what do we work on? What do we pass for now? That feels a little more critical. And there may be things that, we could, like you said, we just don't need in version 1 or phase 1 or milestone 1.
And so that includes like the whole process. So so this multi-site workflow I already created, so that we can, in the future not use Fireside anymore, but using Hugo to build everything. That can like take a bit of a back seat, because that's not needed like right away. We don't need to replace the Fireside sites, and so that's like a lot of work that can be done later. But I feel like we are feature-wise, we are like there. So we could easily, I think, switch over, because like the episodes are there. You can use the video player, the audio players in. Also, thanks to Kiro, who implemented the Podverse player, right?
Yeah. Also, a special shout out that Mitch from the Podverse project has joined, and that has been great too to see.
And they figured that out by themselves, so I had like zero input. Kiro needed to explain some stuff to me. So yeah, and it was really all his work, and that's working good now.
That's a great example of people have swooped in and really helped out. You're right, we are really close. I have like a couple of controversial hot takes just in design wise. Like I don't really want the video player on the episode pages. The reason why we have a video player on the existing JB site is a limitation in the WordPress theme. And if we don't put something there, the page doesn't render properly. So we've just been embedding the video. But we don't really need it. And that Podverse player is so great, that could be front and center or right around that area. But yeah, that kind of stuff. There's a few other notes, but all small stuff. I think you're right. We're close. And we could always iterate on the design too, once it's done.
And so I'm really pleased with like the build times. So every time you commit something, the site gets built and then deployed.
It sure does. It's incredible.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's generating like 21,000 sites and deploys it in like under 2 minutes. That's insane. And that's like GitHub free tier runners and so on. So that's nothing fancy. And I think try doing that with Jekyll or something like that. Then it will be like probably 25 minutes or 30 minutes. I mean, it sounds so not important, but if you do a lot of changes and do a lot of deployments, you want to make it fast, and also like locally when you do stuff, you want it to be fast. And so I really like that.
Yes, the chat room is asking, Dan's asking in our Matrix live chat. Yes, we're using Hugo to generate the site. It sort of worked out to be the perfect tool for the job. I had it in the back of my mind for years as a possible replacement, but it gives us something to work with. It's tooling that people can understand, and then the output is just a really nice, flat, fast website. And which is sort of what I feel it's the opposite of what WordPress gives you in a lot.
So I also did like a lot of WordPress sites in the past, but not like for the last 8 years or so, because I just couldn't stand it anymore. And so I really like Hugo because it doesn't need maintenance. It's like super fast. You can't get any faster, and it's like it doesn't need fancy hosting.
Has it been much of a barrier for people coming in to work on the project? Have you noticed that, or are people picking it up pretty easily?
All at the same time, I was new to Hugo, new to GitHub, new to Git itself, and kind of new to setting up a development environment locally as well. But even with just the very super minimal documentation that you had up on the MVP site a while ago. And it's pretty straightforward to get in there. Now, I did get an exclusive tour of how Hugo works, thanks to Stefan, and we spent 3 hours or something hanging out doing that. But I have found that the structure is fairly simple, and as long as you understand a few little principles, most of it is fairly readable. And so, making modifications, especially to content, has been very straightforward. And that was the whole point, was to make it sort of very markdown friendly, easy for hosts to go in there and change information and make a few little tweaks. So I found that quite nice. Now, I can't speak to the back end stuff and what's happening there. Other people have dove in, and it seems fairly friendly.
What would interest me is do you prefer it compared to a WordPress backend, like a web front end? Do you like the workflow of just using your text editor and doing stuff?
I mean, I love it because that's how I do my own personal notes. That's how I record things in my own knowledge base. I've just got a bunch of text notes in Nextcloud or whatever. And
I would say we have a dream. We have a dream.
Good talk.
The show doc is the source of truth one day. And we put everything in the show doc, guest information, links, everything, show description. And we maybe have certain, specific things we put in there to make it clear to anything reading the doc that this is host, this is guest, these are, links. We accommodate that. And then you basically feed that to whatever's generating the website, and then goes and generates all of the feeds and generates all of the posts on YouTube and everywhere else. And one day, that's really the dream. And so our workflow would technically be text, although we use HDocs, which is a markdown real-time editor in the web. But it's just stored as text in the database that we would probably be pulling and then, using one day. We're not there, but
Cairo again did something in this regard because he built this content scraper, and it's running now once a day and looks for new episodes and then automatically adds it to the current site. So that's basically that. So yeah, it's really neat. And I'm super happy how it turned out. But I'm also I like that we are using plain Hugo without any Node.js tooling and so on. There was a bit of a discussion in the community. We should use Node.js and so on, and more JavaScript. And I am a bit reluctant to adding that. So my idea is keep it as simple as possible. I really like that you just need Hugo as a binary to do everything. Also, the style sheet compilation and all that stuff is done by Hugo. And you don't need the whole Node.js setup and so on, because setting up Node.js can really be annoying, especially if you are not experienced in that, so it can be rather painful. So we have in the community people from all kinds of backgrounds, and I want to make it as easy as possible and saying to them, you just need the Hugo binary and that's it. Makes it super, super easy to enter.
It's approachable, but also we were talking about this with Wes behind the scenes because we like to make sure that Wes has, his input on any of the tech decisions we're making. And for us, the advantage of it just being the Hugo binary, keeping it really simple and not making any node dependencies, is it makes our deployment and server strategy super portable, where we, can shop around if we ever need to. Don't know, we might not need to, but it's nice to have that ability. But B, it makes it just a simpler maintenance thing for us long term, right? And so that to us is extremely valuable, especially considering a lot of the fancier stuff we could do outside the website and then just put the results on the website. I'm not necessarily 100% opposed to doing something that adds a lot of value, but I totally am in agreement with you, Stefan. It's we keep it simple, keep it down to the binary, we keep it portable, we keep it approachable by new developers, and we make it easier for JB to maintain. 10 years, we've had the current website 10, 11 years in different iterations. So that's the kind of timeline we could be looking at here.
Yeah, and you always should consider when you're introducing complexity that the value is there. That's not just complexity for complexity's sake or for superficial benefits and that.
And all of this is open source, right? So if we keep it simple and we keep it understandable, it's possible, another podcast group could take this work and they could deploy something that meets their needs. And the simpler we keep it, the more likely that is to happen too. There's that element. It's not totally driving every decision, but it's as we do some of this stuff, it's in the back of my mind.
Yeah, and also that's why I chose, like, we have this CSS framework called Bulma. I chose it because it's like super simple. It is only CSS and HTML components and has no like JavaScript and anything. Doesn't make any assumptions what you want to use it for, and it's just very extensible and very good documented. And it's also like serving us well, I guess, because the community, the people who didn't know Bulma, kind of start to liking it. And yeah, it's a good framework how we can introduce new components and so on. So that's not like super chaos and yeah, better to style. Yeah, so I think that's also good. And also like, yeah, on the design front, we have like a lot of stuff still to do and clean it up and so on, because that's like the least important part, or the parts that has not many unknowns. So it's not like a risky part. You just need to some hours sit yourself there and clean it up.
The design could be extra tricky too, because like that is something that is, you know, it's touching on the brand identity a bit too. So it's like we probably want to loop in some JB people on that, and that could take time, but we do need the help with the design. It's all up on our GitHub, and we do have the Matrix chat room as well, where people can collaborate. Reese has recently been jumping in and looking at some of that stuff. There's been some folks there, but Brent, you have probably a better read on it than I do, but it feels like that's still an area where maybe we could use some additional help is design. And if you go to jupiterbroadcasting.net and take a look at it, you probably see some areas that could use some sprucing.
Yeah, I mean, the episode page itself definitely needs some love. So it's just like the bare content, just here it is. I mean, we're not winning any awards with that.
You know, this is version 1. I have I've been trying to be pretty diligent about putting design tags on some of the issues that touch on design stuff. And I did just this morning write some pretty clear, maybe guiding tips for what we need those pages to be. Some thoughts on just like, hey, this could move here, this could move here, like very clear for some of the conversations, Chris, you and I and Wes had recently about that. I've also tagged them as like good first issue, because I think someone who has some design background, Hugo makes it pretty approachable to kind of work on some of that stuff. And we've gotten a few people from websites like firstgoodissue.com and stuff like that that have come in and had a look, and some community members who've kind of bitten on those strategies of mine, and it's working. So I think we're getting there. We could use a little bit more help, I think, but there's certainly an issue that we can link to that clearly states at least 5 things that I think need to happen right away as a priority.
We could throw that in the notes, eh?
Yeah, also I think design or web design doesn't scale well with different or with multiple users. So there's like, you need to have like a clear vision and like 2-3 people really coming up with how they want it to look, and then other people to execute. But I think the design itself doesn't scale well as like a development process of code or so. That's like a bit tricky. And I mean, it's like your brand and you must like decide what you want, right? So you must be happy with it. So
a really good point. Thankfully, you know, I think as a photographer and working with a lot of designers, maybe I'm well suited to at least be a guiding light on that. I can't do the implementations, but certainly I can provide a little bit of guidance. So I'll keep doing that for sure.
But we have really good people for implementation. So I'm
okay.
Yeah, I think
I see what you're saying. You're saying get to it.
Yeah. All right. I love it here.
I think they just need to be told or explained what to do, and then they can do it. I have no doubt.
Yeah, that touches on something I've been impressed by actually in the last even 2 weeks. It's like every time I come up with an idea, because I'm trying to use the jupiterbroadcasting.net site as my main resource whenever I'm working on our show episodes and stuff like that, so that I can see, you know, how does it fit into my usual everyday workflow. And then it becomes quickly obvious, like, oh, wait a second, like I don't want tags first, I want a description, or hey, there's some hosts missing or something like that. So it's been a great way to just kind of test the site and see some of the features that I kind of wish were there, and some functionality that we currently have on the current website that's maybe missing. So that's been great. But I've been impressed mostly by how I can just like, you know, of course, late at night, dream up features that I wish were there. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to make a ticket for this thing. That would be nice. Oh, I'm going to make another ticket for this other thing that, like, I don't know if we could do that, but that would be nice. And it's amazing. Like sometimes then I'll, do an 8 hours of sleep and wake up and someone's already done it. And it's insane. A huge thank you to everybody who's just like picked up some of these random ideas and made them happen in a short amount of time. It's been really impressive. So I think, I can't say enough good things about that.
Yeah, and it also seems like everybody is like having a good time, having fun, which is also, I think, always important. If you work on something in your free time, it should be enjoyable, and the people should be nice, and they should be good to each other, which they all are, because it's like a stellar community. And yeah, it's really it's work, but it's also like fun.
I've caught Kiro mentioning in our Matrix chat a few times that he's like, oh, geez, I wish I didn't have this day job so I could just keep working on this project.
Yeah.
So
the best community, really.
So
and
good.
it's such a great demonstration of the value for value stuff that we've been talking about, right? It's not a monetary thing, but it's so immensely valuable. And the website has needed this for so long, right?
Are you now like a bit like, why didn't we do this sooner?
Perhaps. Yeah. I mean, maybe. It was, there's always so many things to be working on. Not every time we've opened something up to the community has it gone super well, because what I think, you noticed when we went public with it, how a lot of things changed. That's generally how we have started a lot of projects in the past, is we just, boom, start from the very beginning like that, and it just kind of goes in 100 different directions. So I think, this time it had a little bit different of a trajectory, because we kind of started it low key, and then we started talking about it on office hours. And that's really kind of like, the core JB audience. It's like the JB completionists that are listening to all the shows are catching office hours. So it's a smaller group. And then when we put it on the GitHub and, started the Matrix room, it just sort of blew up from there. But having that kind of staged growth, I think, helped us get a few key individuals like yourself in and get a few things established before it just went totally haywire. And that was the missing recipe, I think, that made it actually get traction this time. Also, I really think having GitHub involved makes a big difference. Like, we've really debated this in the past. Should we use our own GitLab? Should we use something else? Or should we go on GitHub? And I think it made a difference this time organizing this on GitHub. I think that also helped. So,
because everybody who works now on the JB side now gets like progression on GitHub and represents and so on. And yeah, I mean, I'm always like happy when I see the green dots every day, and I think, yeah, I've done something good, and everybody sees it. That's nice.
We're passing around screenshots internally of it, watching it. So everybody's watching it. It's great. So I think that's been a factor. And it feels great to actually have this accomplished now, because we had to pull it off now. I don't know what we were going to do. Maybe I was just going to throw together some really crappy Hugo site that would have been really bad. I don't know what I would have done. So pretty great. Like I say, it's been extremely valuable for us, and we're just really grateful. And we got 13 people now working on that. That's not nothing.
Well, and in the Matrix room as well, there are more than 30 people discussing ideas and stuff like that. So, and some people joining every single day. So I think it's trending in a kind of an amazing direction.
It's great.
I don't know at which point I'll be overwhelmed, but I'll let you guys know.
I need help.
Yeah,
I need help.
You can't be overwhelmed, Brent. What will I do then? I need you for being overwhelmed. So
that's right. You just can't. Well, he can. He just can't be overwhelmed at the same time, right? You guys have to alternate.
yeah, okay, that's true. So
Yeah.
Yeah, you be overwhelmed at my nighttime. I'll be overwhelmed at your nighttime.
oh, yeah, okay, that's
Right.
also a deal.
Right.
And every project needs one sane person. So, and that's you. You're the dedicated sane person on this project. So
Deal. Do I get a badge?
Yep.
maybe.
Oh, that would be great. We should come up with some swag. That would be really nice for the people involved with the website. We'll circle back to that idea. Well, okay. So we should say, if you'd like to participate, if you're listening and want to get involved, we'll have links in the show notes to the GitHub page. There's also the JB website Matrix group, where sort of the on-the-ground chat is happening. Is there anything else we should point people to that are hearing and kind of getting curious, maybe want to participate?
I think we did set up recently a contributing.md, a little bit of documentation there. It's a bunch of ideas collected. But if you're new to the project and you're thinking, oh, how is the best way for me to approach getting involved? We've tried to describe it there. So that's a good place to start. Read that. It's not too long. If you have any questions, please just ask me directly or ask anywhere in a ticket or something, and we're happy to help. But that is probably the best approach.
There you go. Stefan, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you being here and all your hard work, obviously.
Thank you.
I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to thank Linode for sponsoring Office Hours. They are crazy enough to actually support the shenanigans, if you can believe it. So let's go right now and say hello to Linode together. Let's do it together. Linode.com. And guess what? I got /Jupiter.
You did. You got the whole planet?
It's a big planet too, Brent.
It sure is. Yeah, it's true. Gas giant.
You guys know this, but I'm going to tell you just in case you didn't know this. You need to wise up. Linode is the best place to host your stuff. For Linux geeks, for people that are speed hounds, for people that want the absolute best flexibility, the best dashboard, the best support. Linode's model is different than the hyperscalers. They work on locking you in and then just selling you more and more services. Linode has a very straightforward pricing structure that's 30 to 50% cheaper than the major cloud providers that are out there. And you go there, everything's right there. It's upfront. You're not going to get any gotcha surprises on your bill like you do with the hyperscalers. You know what I'm talking about. I've accidentally spent $300 on the boss's credit card once. I learned that one the hard way. Linode doesn't do that. And on top of all of that, they've got great services like a powerful DNS manager, S3 compatible object storage, cloud firewalls, physical servers if you need it, database as a service, which is actually really great. And then the other thing that's fantastic is just their standard deployment on any rig has all kinds of sensible defaults for things like alerting about bandwidth or storage. You can take snapshots, you can do automatic backups, and it's all super clear and easy to understand too. If you guys can't tell, I'm legitimately a big fan, and I think you'll love it too. And what puts it over the top is that $100. That's Linode coming in with the competence, right? That's Linode coming in saying with $100, you're actually going to be able to try anything on our platform that you want, and you're going to be able to try it for a reasonable amount of time to form an actual opinion. That's what that $100 is saying. That's, if you think about it, that's a bold statement. They want you to try it, and I think you're going to love it. So head over to linode.com/Jupiter, support this here crazy Office Hours production, and get yourself $100 of machines. I mean, I don't know what you want to use it for. You could use it for storage, I suppose. That's technically still using a machine. Linode.com/Jupiter. Brent, you got to go get yourself over there right now because you know what? That's where I got your node.
Hey.
I put a node for Brent up on Linode. Why not, right? Why not? We kind of just use it for everything. Really? What don't we use it for?
There are very few projects that you come up with that doesn't involve Linode, it seems.
And we're like with the website, we're thinking about, okay, well, what makes sense to store in the object storage at Linode, right? And it's just S3 compatible object storage. So, I mean, you could run a Minnow server on your own box one day and run it there. I want to mention something. I touched on this earlier, but you made me think about it today, so it's your fault.
You're welcome.
You sent me a message saying, why are we getting so much spam? What's going on? And I would characterize, so what we have is Brent and I have a shared Office Hours chat room. And the emails that come into Office Hours automatically get posted in this chat room. So that way we can both see them. And 95% of what comes into that inbox is garbage, scam, marketing.
It seems legitimate.
Oh, they would pay us. They would pay us. They would absolutely pay us.
You should see some of the stuff they would pay us to do.
And some of it's like, I read one. I just finally broke down and read one of these emails on Coder Radio this week. They want us to sneaky link, like this is just one example. They want us to sneaky link to gambling websites and put posts on our page that encourage people to click on for real money gambling, as they put it. And then because they recognize this is like such a sketch business to be involved in, they're willing to pay us a premium to do it. And they say this in the introduction email.
Yeah, I read that one. That was pretty good.
And they're all like this, right? So I want you guys to understand that this is a pervasive problem because Office Hours, it's not a big show, right? It does all right. It does better than the average podcast, but it's not, it's not a big show. And we're
like
getting
a
this.
niche of a niche of a niche.
It's a show we're making for people who like Jupiter Broadcasting. We just basically don't give any Fs. Although I am thinking about maybe changing the name, but anyways, I'll come back to that. I like the name, but so does everybody else. Every other podcast out there. But we're getting this kind of stuff as a small show. And so you can only imagine how it scales up if you've got any kind of reach, and how the offers get more and more tempting if you have any kind of reach. And this, in a nutshell, is why nearly all tech media sucks. Not all of it. You know, there's definitely people out there that do it right. Some of our friends do it right. But in the Linux niche specifically, it's really, really bad. And this has a side effect of misinforming the community a lot. So there's a Linux project out there right now, in my opinion, based on research and background conversations I've had, is like 90% hot air. But they really know how the tech press works. They know the big secret that I'm going to tell you about. They already know it because they've been around for a while. At least the person running it has. And the big secret in the tech press is that the reader, or the listener or viewer, depending on what your medium is, the listener, the viewer, the reader, they are not the customer. When you go to like a ZDNet or an Ars Technica or a Register, you're not the customer. You guys all know this. You've heard it a million times. If you're not paying for it, you're the product. The tech industry is the customer, specifically the advertisers that exist in the tech industry. But you got to be friendly with the entire tech industry for those advertisers to be friendly with you, because it's all about access. And as long as the Linux press and tech press in general make money via ads, they're just never going to serve the reader as the customer. It's their business model. It's not nefarious. It's not evil. It's the business model. It's simple as that. The reader is not the customer. The listener is not the customer. The viewer is not the customer. It's as simple as that. I have been doing online media for 15 years. I have been making it my primary way to make a living for nearly 13 of those 15 years. So I have some standing here. I'm telling you, you're not the customer. It's unfortunate because what it means is that they're more inclined to print puff pieces about a project or a company that probably didn't really earn that coverage. They're less critical because they want to maintain their access. They want to maintain their network because they live and die on their access to information in these companies. And they just do business as a standard practice this way. They don't do it to deceive you. There's nothing evil about it. It's just the business model. And because their paychecks depend on things working this way, I don't think they think about it that much. So you'll see nothing but puff articles for companies like SolarWinds or Linux projects that are trying to break into the enterprise that really haven't delivered on anything yet. So this is why I go on all the time about membership programs and boosts. Because membership programs and boosts keep Jupiter Broadcasting's audience the customer. And it's my job, I feel, as the editor-in-chief of JB, to make sure that the audience always remains our largest customer. So that's where I think boosts come in. That's where I think membership comes in. It gives you the confidence to know that the audience is our customer. Now, of course, I know that the audience has to be the customer because that's ultimately who's going to hold us responsible. I know that personally. But it matters that that's how the business sees things too, right? You understand, like, long term, the way incentives work, it's necessary that the business also recognize the audience as the primary customer. So that's why I feel like boosts are really significant for podcasting, because a lot of podcasters don't have the infrastructure or the numbers or the skill or the know-how to do advertising. Thus, that's not really an option for them. But even if they could get advertising, most of them don't know how to do it right. They don't know how to do the reads right. They don't know how to set up relationships right. They don't know how to build boundaries. It's very difficult. It's a very pervasive industry. It constantly is pushing on your line, and you have to have a skill set to push back to while maintaining a friendly relationship. It's a very hard thing to do. And with YouTube, that problem's slightly alleviated by the monetization platform that YouTube offers. But the issue there is it incentivizes you to be a slave to an algorithm that makes content that's horrible, right? But with boosts, there's no algorithm. There's no Google auction happening in the background to sell a mattress ad. It's the audience directly sending value to the podcasts. And value for value is the only way to solve this problem at scale on the internet for small creators, large creators, for small free software projects and big software projects. It is a fundamental shift in how the business, the project, the creators are incentivized. So, with that said, let's get into some of these boosts, because we do have some great boosts. And I know that was a really big build-up, Brent, but I felt like it was important to get that out there because I think people might be missing the message and the noise with everything going on right now.
And we do occasionally get people who, and we're listening, who challenge why we're doing boosts, why we're dedicating, such a large time slot in some of the shows for reading boosts. And I think you mentioned something that I think is worth mentioning here, which is that often in the boosts, some ideas and projects and like tools and things get mentioned that we would have never had a chance to talk about. And it gives us a little, a chance to just mention them quickly here and explore them and add to our sort of toolbox, which is really amazing too, and share that in a really nice way. So I know it's had a ton of value for you, even just seeing the boosts come in on a daily basis, but in terms of like a utility for us as well. I mean, we've gotten a bunch of great tips from the boosts, so thanks to everybody there.
Yeah, and the other thing that they've been doing, which we didn't expect, is they've been keeping us on our toes about following up on items that we bring up on the show. The audience remembers and asks us about it, and we always have every intention of following up on stuff, but we just got a lot going on. We forget, we're working on the next show. We forget what we talked about the week before. And the boosts have been a great way to kind of keep those threads alive and interject questions or discussion or criticism that we wouldn't have otherwise brought into the show, right? So they're great from that standpoint as well. All right, well, let's do it.
And now it is time for Le Boost.
So Gene being boosted in 7 days ago with a big old boost, 30,000 sats.
'Cause I'm a back home baller. If I want something, I just holler.
He said, would a desktop OS on a powerful server setup in another room with maybe some sort of thin client in the office, would that work with horsepower combined with silence? You could do like the random desktop-y things in VMs or LXC to keep it isolated from the production grade stuff. RHEL or Alma Linux 9 and its super long lifestyle could provide you a stable, slow-moving base for the system. With things like OBS officially having flatpak support, you could really probably load whatever is needed. And he says, P.S., I updated my boost from 10,000 sats, which is about $2.20, to 30,000 sats, which is about $6.60, to help Brent with his travel fund.
Oh, that's nice.
I really like that. That is nice because we have some fun projects we want to work on. We want to get Brent down here before the September road trip and bang those things out. And so that is very helpful.
We started a project list, which is always a dangerous thing for us.
I like the idea. I toyed around with something like this over the network years ago, where I put a powerful box in one room and then just dumb clients throughout the house. It does work pretty well. I don't think it's the right setup here because there are times where we're actually physically needing to plug things and unplug things from the back of the boxes, especially with USB interfaces and cameras. But I'd love to do a project like that. I think that'd be so much fun. Awesome Matt boosted in 7 days ago with 9,538 sats. Sent it in a couple times, so I just combined them. Just by putting some parts together, I came up with something that looks like this might fit your needs. He's talking about our replacement OBS rig. Relatively small and quiet, 5th gen Ryzen for under $900. It has Intel Wi-Fi, so everything should be compatible. And of course, you could just tweak it based on your needs. And what Awesome Matt did is he included a PC part builder link. So
so great.
It's like all the parts right here. It's actually it's a kick butt box. It comes out at like $960, but seeing this makes me feel like, yeah, we probably could. We probably would be okay with a DIY PC again. In the back of my mind, I was like, a Thalia would be awesome. Under $960, that's a hard price to beat these days.
I know you bought the current one, I think, with some of your Bitcoin back in the day. Do you remember what it was sort of equivalent worth back then?
I think they were, all the machines we bought were and we bought like identical machines. I think they were all like right around $800-900. They were kind of in that price range. One of them, I think we put extra disc in, so that one was slightly more expensive. But yeah, it was, looking back at it, it was a cheap time to buy machines compared to some of the prices. Some of them. Double boost from Awesome Matt. 1,569 sats, and just says, love y'all too, because I mentioned he's awesome. Because he is awesome. Of course, it's in the name, I suppose. We got a boost from Delian 7 days ago, 3,500 sats, or Dylan, I suppose. Dylan. because I really appreciated the discussion about podcast production. I've been making my own show casually for a few years to a small audience, and I recently switched to value for value. Question: what are you using for soundboard during the boost segment? It's a good question. So we've used a couple of different apps over the years. There is SoundDux, DUX for Linux, which I like a lot. And then on the Mac, Fargo, FARRGO, I think. FARRAGO, I think. And that's a pretty good app for the Mac as well. And I think you'll, either way you go, you'll like it. Just don't go crazy like I do. You'll drive people crazy.
I think also part what he's asking here is, where'd you get the clips that you're using?
Oh, you think so?
I think maybe. I would be asking that as a follow-up anyways. Well, here you go. I'm asking as a follow-up.
Those, it depends. Like sometimes I see a boost come in and I'm inspired to go grab a soundboard bite for that boost right then and there, and I just have to track it down. Some of them came from the Podcast Index guys. They have like on their GitHub, they have like a bunch of boost sound clips you can use. And then others are just ones I've collected over the years. I mean, I have, I don't know, something like 40 different soundboards.
There's one you grabbed recently from, I think it was like a show you were watching or a news piece, and it's my favorite so far. Can you give us a taste?
Coming in hot with the boost.
I love that one.
Yeah, I got that from my news report. Yeah. It wasn't a news report. It was a YouTube car channel. That's what it was. And it was this super broken down, dilapidated car that they had jacked up and put a massive engine in with, the intakes out of the hood and everything like that. So it's just this total junker. I don't know. Something about it I love, though. I can't help it. We got a double boost from Dylan. 3,500 sats. Double boost, tell me if I'm crazy, but I previously produced my show using Mumble with multi-track recording output and then painstakingly edited the resulting tracks in Audacity. Now, I just record live and I edit nothing, similar to a Twitch or really a video on demand stream. My co-hosts are in a Jitsi Me room, recording and streaming at the same time with OBS using my desktop PC running Manjaro. Smart move or reckless?
Oh, I like this. This might be a series.
That is a good series. I always like going a little reckless. I always do. It keeps it fun, and you don't want it to get boring. I think you went overboard. I think where you went wrong, Dylan, in the past is you went overboard. Like we have a Mumble Room here right now. Hey, Mumble Room. Hi, guys. Hello.
Hey.
And they're hanging out with us. They get a low latency Opus stream, but we have never done the individual track recording simply because of the work overhead, right? Each member in the Mumble Room would become a track. And so if you've got 4, 20, 30 people in there, it's 4, 20, 30 tracks. That's crazy. So we do mix the Mumble down to a single track. But then each one of our individual hosts is also their own individual track. Ultimately, you can make it sound significantly better. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Brent's voice is different than my voice, and our voices and just the way we're recorded are different than the Mumble Room. And so each one of them needs their own EQ, needs their own touch with the compressor. It needs its own pass over. Each one has its own unique background noise. So really, you do need to process them separately for really, really great audio. That being said, go check out PeerTube. Tell me what you think. And then go compare it to the released version of this show. Office Hours 8 will come out on Friday once Drew's done with it. And you can compare Office Hours 8 to the PeerTube release, and you can kind of get an idea of what the difference between live to tape is versus fully edited. And I think you'll agree the fully edited is going to sound better. It's going to be better paced. It's going to be a little more refined. The fully, live mix version isn't necessarily unwatchable or unlistenable. So it's just kind of depending on your audience too. And then lastly, what is sustainable for you, right? Like none of it really matters if the other way was just burning you out and you weren't going to be able to keep it going. And now you found a way where you can keep it going. And so the show goes on. Like ultimately, that's what really matters, right? So I don't think it's reckless. I think if that is the case, then I think it was probably a smart move. But don't be afraid to experiment and feel free to use our show, this here very episode, as an A/B, because I think that'd be a good little test. Get a sense. Our first row of ducks comes in this week from the Golden Dragon, as always.
I'm a duck, D-U-K duck, loaded with talent.
And he's got a question to you with 2,222 sats. Brent, what strategies did you use to learn coding? And what have you, like say when learning Hugo, And what have you learned? I'm trying to learn some dev stuff, and I'm looking for strategies to start coding. Side note, I love that I'm basically following the journey of the Golden Dragon and his learning development skills across multiple shows as he boosts into like Coder and Office Hours. I feel like I'm learning more about him every time. So what have you found useful, Brent, when you're trying to pick all this stuff up, and you've been trying to pick it up quick too?
The question was posed in past tense. What strategies did you learn? Did you use to learn coding? And I think actually I'm probably more likely in the same boat as the Golden Dragon. I'm just on the very tip of learning. So I think the number one thing for me was, and I learned this from Tim Ferriss, of all people, is the concept of being very careful what you learn. It's more important to learn the right thing than it is to learn a bunch of wrong stuff. If you want to learn Python, for instance, there's about like 100,000 videos on YouTube about learning Python, which is actually not that helpful. And it's too bad that there are so many, I got to say. So before even diving into any of it, just looked at, I guess, trying to determine who had quality and recency and who was getting down to like the very essentials of what someone needs to learn at first, instead of just like, here's how to do all the things. And I don't really know if it's the best way or it's the right way to learn it quickly. Be very discerning, I guess, is all of that boiled down to a few words. And so there's one gentleman, I think his YouTube channel is Tech with Tim. I think he works at Microsoft working on, I forget now, but one of their projects. He is super no fluff, but very complete in his explanations. And it's like, okay, here's everything you need to know for like stage 1 compressed into like a 30-minute video with chapters, which is such a helpful thing when you're trying to learn. It's like, oh, I'm trying to learn about, Python's functions. Well, maybe you got to listen to it 3 or 4 times. So that's what I would say. Number 1, be super discerning about where you learn. So my first research part was like, where are people learning successfully? Because I don't want to go learn somewhere unsuccessfully. It's a total waste of my time. I have like 100 other things I want to be doing. And so that was super important to me. The other thing is like, try to find some folks that you know, or in the community, the JB community, even just to recommend some things. Like some of the back channel conversations I've had with Wes have been fascinating. So I've been like, oh, Wes, I'm just kind of like learning this thing, but I'm struggling a little bit. Do you have any like tips or tricks? And he's like, yeah, here's 4 other things you could look at that are like progressions in your learning. So having like a soft mentor like that is actually super nice too. So those are 2 things I think I would recommend very strongly is careful where you learn and go find someone who can really give you those shortcuts.
I think you just did. I think you just did that.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Very good.
Recursive.
Cospelin boosted in 7 days ago with 3,690 sats.
Boost.
Whoa. This is the first Office Hours I've ever listened to. There's a lot more in this show than I thought. I'd like to make a joke, though, and I'd like to say this show sounds like a podcasting 2.1-RC1 boardroom, which he thinks is great. A note about the ads. He says, I don't mind it when the podcast inserts the ads, but the dynamic ads, no good. Thanks for the show. We totally are following. I mean, we don't follow nearly the Podcasting 2.0 development stuff that obviously the Podcasting 2.0 show does. I mean, how could we? But I feel like we're giving it a bit of coverage from a boots on the ground podcaster who is trying to figure out how to implement this stuff into his business. And I kind of look at it as a competitive advantage as well. Like, not like it's a bad competitive, but if our shows can have more features that give you things like chapters and transcripts and more host information and higher context and all that kind of stuff, that's great, right? Why wouldn't we want that stuff? And I've always kind of wanted to have the premium feature set for our shows. So I'm following the Podcasting 2.0 stuff from kind of that perspective and recognizing the shortcomings in the podcast industry, recognizing the opportunities we've missed with mobile apps and the opportunities that we've missed by constantly encouraging people to do things outside the podcast app, which has been detrimental to our growth in the long term, and all that stuff. And so I follow it for that purpose. And the guys invited me on the Podcasting 2.0 show this week, so they'll have an episode out on Friday when we do, and go check that. If all things go as planned, I'll be on this week's episode. So I'll share some of my thoughts there. Thanks, Cos. Optimus Gray boosts in with a real doozy 6 days ago with 22,222 sats. How about that for a row of ducks?
Thank you very much. And here's something for your trouble.
That's a big old granddaddy duck. He says, for us Jupiter Party members, could I ask for possibly a new feed? If the Lightning and Boost support is going to take a while, could we have a separate feed of just the bonus content, like the post show for self-hosted, the Coderly, and the non like live stuff that goes out into the member feeds. So then we could subscribe to the normal feeds and Boost like we always do, but then also still get to enjoy the bonus content. Hope to see you all at the West Coast meetup. That's a good idea.
I know, that's interesting.
Just a bonus content feed. So you can subscribe to all the regular feeds and then just have one feed that's just the special stuff we create for the members. How did I never think of that before?
We might actually be able to do that quickly.
I got to figure out the plumbing, but that seems like something I should have thought of. So thanks, Optimus.
Those ducks are powerful.
Those are good ducks. Dave Jones, our buddy Dave Jones, speaking of podcasting 2.0, boosted in 2 days ago with 2,112 sats.
BOOST.
He says, Alex Gates is the real deal. He's the smartest developer I ever met. Shout out to Alex. He was on the show last week. And I say high praise from Dave. High praise from Dave there, Alex. That's pretty good. Oh, a guy 1 boosted in 7 days ago.
Boost.
Yes, I am still listening because we took time off. I thought maybe nobody was listening anymore. I thought, I don't know. A new show, relatively small show, goes off the air for almost a month. I thought, nobody's listening anymore. But Oh, a guy was. And then we got a double boost from Oh, a guy. 7 days ago, 222 sats, baby ducks. Double boost. I've seen a variety of NUC-like boxes with AMD Ryzen APUs. I feel like there's something in there for an OBS machine. Maybe something you're looking for. I think he's right.
Interesting. Those would be, well, they're not fanless, or are they fanless? I'm always looking for fanless, but
Why do you think they're not?
I don't think the NUCs are. Although they might be quiet.
But if they were super quiet, yeah that'd be fine. Birdad0234 boosted in with 420 sats. Bah.
Coming in hot with the boost.
In regards to a Bulletproof PeerTube setup, maybe build a beefy server and have it be the main aggregator of all the streams, using something like Teleport, Restream, or NDI. That way, the endpoints are flexible, and the final output is only an appliance you need to worry about. Ooh, he says he'll send in more feedback via email with more deets. Well, that's pretty great. That's pretty great. And then, speaking again of podcasting 2.0, the Podfather, Adam Curry, boosts in with 10,000 sats.
'Cause I'm a back home baller. If I want something, I just holler.
And this is a little bit of brilliance. We got to take a moment to make space in the show, because what the Podfather has realized, I think, is genius.
Mm-hmm.
He says Spotify is the shitcoin of podcasting. And I think he's right, because it's Spotify, highly centralized, implementing proprietary standards, going to build and build, i.e. pump and pump and pump, until they realize there's nothing really behind it. There's no money to be had here. And then it will pop and collapse down to some like really crappy product. Whereas Bitcoin, decentralized, there is no central authority. There's no Satoshi Nakamoto anymore. He's gone. It's an open protocol. It's been online for 13 years, widely distributed all over the internet, completely decentralized, tens of thousands of nodes. I think he's right. It's the open standard. I love it. That right there is some genius. That's what that was, Podfather. When I saw that, I'm like, that's brilliant. That's so brilliant. All right. We got another baller boost, and this one was a moment for me. This one came from someone who I hear on other podcasts boosting all the time. So it was special because I feel a real community is building here in the boosts, and we're watching it happen across multiple shows. The Dreb Scott boosted in 3 days ago with 33,333 sats.
'Cause I'm a back home baller. If I want something, I just holla.
I'm a duck, D-U-K duck, loaded with talent.
I'm giving that a special duck status too. I don't know why, but I feel like it. He said, I heard about you guys while listening to Podcasting 2.0, and Dave mentioned you guys interviewed Alex Gates. I came over to hear Alex and ended up subscribing. Enjoy the show. Boost! You know what? You get a special boost.
Boost!
There you go. Believe that's a Fletcher special. Dreb Scott, thank you. I was nice. I felt like I just got boosted from a boosting celebrity over there. I got, I was like a little like, oh, Dreb Scott boosted the show.
Nice.
It's funny. Like it's a really neat community because I listen to other podcasts and I hear these individuals boosting in, and Dreb helps with Podcasting 2.0's chapters. He helps do their community chapters. So great. Our last big boost of the week came in from, this is a great name, Lord of Bites, 3 days ago, 20,480 sats.
Coming in hot with the boost.
First of all, let me say you're the best podcast group out there. I've been trying to get into Linux for 10 years. Every time I start to play with Linux, I lose interest in a couple of months. It wasn't until I found you all that I really started getting into Linux. Your shows in the community keep me inspired every day to learn something new in Linux. I also love that I'm getting involved in my first open source project, helping out with the new website. Keep up the amazing work.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Lord of Bites have been sharing a whole bunch of great insights and stuff and working hard. So thank you. We love you.
Value for value in multiple ways there, Lord of Bites. Thank you. How incredible. Really good to see. Bring a tear to my eye. And then we do have a couple of thank you boosts that I wanted to get out there. We got 500 sats from Al Carney pointing out that, maybe the Linux Foundation being on Spotify, not so bad. Maybe it'll bring in new listeners and new users to Linux. I remain skeptical, but that was their boost. 450 sats from a listener letting us know, yeah, I am still out here too. And then 30 sats. That's right. 3,030 sats from Marcel, another V4V legend, says he's still listening. Thanks for the show. And he liked our fake mattress ad. That's great. That is great. I want to say thank you to the Mumble Room for joining us live. You guys are fantastic. We chat a lot in the pre and post show. Maybe, you know what? We ought to do like an open Q&A episode. Get some questions ahead of time. Let the Mumble Room ask questions. Because that's part of the idea of office hours is people might want to know what's going on, have input, something like that. So maybe we plan to do that in the next episode, if I remember. So get your Mumble client ready because you can pop in and you can ask us questions or get clarifications. We have details at linuxunplugged.com/mumble. We'll probably eventually have a Mumble page on the new website, right? That seems like a good
It's on
idea.
my personal to-do list. Someone asked me today, they're like, are you working on this? Should I work on this or are you working on this? I was like, no, I'll do it.
Soon then. Soon. That'll be great. Meanwhile, you're going to be hanging out there at Alex's pad, watching the place for him while he gets ready for the London meetup on the 5th at 6 p.m. local time.
That's
So
true.
that's getting really close.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. And then we have a big batch of West Coast meetups. The times and like the general vicinities are now all posted at meetup.com/Jupiter Broadcasting. Then we're going to ultimately end up at JPL. By the time we do the next episode, we should have the form available. We're going to do an audience lottery. I think what we're going to do is a Nextcloud form that you can fill out, and then we'll use a tool to randomize the results. We'll pull a list of primary winners and secondary winners, so that way if people no-show, we have backup lists we can call on and stuff like that. We'll have details on the GPL lottery soon. We're just trying to figure out a fair way to do it so that way we can get about 15 JB, 20 JB community members inside the Jet Propulsion Laboratory for a very special tour from Tim Canham, the operations lead, I believe, of the Mars Linux copter at JPL. Very excited about that. And on the way down to JPL and on the way back up, we'll be doing multiple meetups, and all the details are at meetup.com/Jupiter Broadcasting. Up first, though, is that London meetup. Then the West Coast tours will be coming up. I think that's everything, Brent. You feel like that's everything?
That's a pretty good show, I think.
Yeah. I guess we should
fun.
say if you'd like to send a boost in, you could go to newpodcastapps.com. And I've been loving Fountain. I'll put my referral link in the show notes. I don't know if it gets me anything anymore, but it might make it so you can follow me and then see the clips I publish. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes for Fountain. Podverse is really great too. And you're going to see that embedded on our new website very soon. Very excited about that. And then, of course, there's a whole bunch of apps like Boost CLI, Breeze. So if you don't want to switch podcast apps, that's all at newpodcastapps.com. You can send a boost in that way. You can send us an email. If you go to officehours.hair, we have a contact form over there. We also have our RSS feed, so you can subscribe. And then we do the show live on Tuesdays at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern over at jupiter.tube. We publish on Fridays, but we do the show live on Tuesdays.
Every fortnight, right? Not every Tuesday, but every fortnight.
Thank you. Every fortnight. It's just jupiter.tube for all that stuff, where you can also watch the archive.
We have a calendar.
It is on the calendar. You're right. jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. We got a calendar on the news site too, right? Is it just the same thing?
So far, it's just the same thing. Yeah.
I mean, it works. It's not beautiful, but it works.
What's funny is Stefan was going to join us here for this office hours, and he and I were like sitting there trying to figure out like time zones. He's like, when's the show live? It's like, oh, you're in like, I think plus 10 from my time zone, but I'm in a different time zone now, and JB's one behind my usual. So I was trying to do all the math, and then we were like, oh, wait, we have a calendar for this.
I forget it too. But it does convert to your local time zone. I mean, we invested millions of dollars in those time zone robots.
Oh, yeah. That's the AI that we have in our site.
Mm-hmm. And if you haven't caught Brent's recent brunches, they are now posted at extras.show. Some great conversations over there. So go check those out. All right. That's everything. Get out of here. It's my office. You're just visiting. I appreciate you, but you gotta go. Thanks for coming. See you next time.